Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. Today's episode is going to be about how to get better presenting your creative work. This is something I think a lot of younger designers and creatives struggle with. And my purpose in recording this episode is to really give you just some guidelines and some rubric, really, to help get yourself to the point of presenting your creative ideas with more confidence and more conviction so that the clients feel like they can really trust you to execute their vision. What I think is going to help all of us in the age of AI is to bring our humanness to the forefront. And I think that comes across most in video. So, this is going to push you, if you're not a video person, you're maybe more of an introvert, to really think about how you communicate your design thinking, not only visually, but with spoken word and with your own enthusiasm and your own drive and ambition and vision for your client and their business, and really hopefully open your eyes to ways that you can continue to improve that process. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Kiss my aesthetic, branding, marketing, entrepreneurship.
If you followed me for a long time, you know that I present almost everything that I do over video. And there's a few reasons for this. And really, I don't even know when exactly in my business I started doing this as part of the process, but I know that as soon as I started doing it, I never looked back. First and foremost, recording things in video is a great way to communicate not only message, but tone. And that part is huge. The tools that I would use for this are Canva, Present and Record, or honestly, Loom. Loom is a great tool if you haven't used it. It basically is a screen recorder that also shows a bubble of your face. And what I've noticed is that doing this type of presentation in this type of way has significantly reduced the number of edits, reduced the number of back and forth, reduced the number of sheer amount of work that we do as creatives by, instead of putting everything up for debate, being strategic about how you present your creative ideas over video so that the clients really get the best idea of what you've visualized on behalf of their company. So, if you're familiar with this process or you've spent a lot of time on my website, kind of clicking through the different portfolio projects, you'll notice that I present brand design projects on what's called the one concept method. So when someone hires us to do branding, we are getting the full download of what it is they want and how they want us to work with them and what they're looking for. Then we spend time back and forth on the defining the brand, making sure that they're signing off on the aesthetics and that they feel aligned with the strategy. Then we spend what we call kind of like our design sprint. So we sit down and we design what we think is the best possible solution to their problems in one concept. So we're not giving them 16 logos to choose from. We're not even giving them 4 logos to choose from. We're saying, like, this is the logo that we think is going to be the best fit for what you're asking for. And here's why, and here's how that works. So at the very beginning of a brand design video presentation, I will always start off with, here are the ground rules for viewing this content. First and foremost, watch the video all the way through. Then give yourself 24 hours. Sleep on it. Don't make any rash decisions. Don't make any gut reactions. I want you to really sit with everything that we've said. Then watch it a second time. I don't know how or when or why I started doing this, but once I did, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And it really helps the clients process everything that they're looking at. It's also important before they even get that video that you start to set the stage in the beginning of their process. One of the lines I always say is, I want you to be excited, but not surprised. I want you to be excited by what you see, but I don't want you to feel like it's coming out of left field. I want you to feel like, oh, this is better than I could have ever imagined it to be, but it's exactly in line with what I said I wanted. So plant that seed first, right? Then when you're in the video presentation, watch the video all the way through the first time, give yourself 24 hours, come back, watch it again. And on the second watch is when I want you to leave your notes. And when you're leaving your notes, I want you to specifically answer the questions that I ask you throughout the presentation. This is a great psychological trick, and not trick to kind of like get anybody's goat, but a strategy to help them pay attention to the things that you know you want feedback on. So they're not just giving you feedback on, you're not like leaving that door so open. right? So I want to specifically lead them towards different questions. Hey, how do you feel about this font? What tagline do you feel like is a better fit here? Where and give them chances to give input so that the whole concept isn't the thing that's coming under scrutiny necessarily. So again, watch the video, come back, watch it 24 hours later, leave your notes. Once you have your notes, you can book a call with me. And once we've booked the call, then we can go through those notes together. You all know how much I love a brag-worthy brand, and when it comes to creating stickers and labels that elevate your branding, Sticker Giant is the brand that you can trust. Whether you're looking to create something for fun for your next launch, elevate your brand, or add a little extra flair to your packaging, Sticker Giant's custom stickers and labels help your brand get noticed in all the right ways. They've got a dedicated team handling every detail, so you can count on Sticker Giant to bring your designs to life just the way that you imagined. And Sticker Giant stickers and labels are proudly made in the US of A. If you're ready to give your brand that extra boost, go to stickergiant.com and use promo code KMA25 for 25% off your first order. Sticker Giant, your partner in the sticker and label business. So that's kind of like laying the groundwork for any kind of creative work brand presentation, right? Is like we want to use brand psychology and consumer psychology to our advantage, making sure that we're asking strategic questions and really presenting our work with the most confidence. And this is, again, where I think a lot of designers and creatives really fall short. The next thing besides deciding your recording tool and picking your kind of like guidelines is practice, 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 especially if you're new. I'm at the point now where I've been doing this for 11 years and I can pretty much talk about the project without any rehearsal and without any like prep. I can pretty much go into it and remember the things that I want to say because it's all very top of mind. But in the beginning, it took me a lot of time to get there, right? So I used to make like brand design in 60 seconds videos and try to summarize everything that we did for a brand in 60 seconds. That was really great practice. I would practice, on my own. It may take me 2, 3, 4 takes to get to the version that I wanted to send to the client. And all of that is natural. I think that's all part of what we're doing here, right? So practicing is really important to get your creative ideas across. I think the other thing we have to remember when we're presenting our creative ideas to a client is that you were hired to solve their problem. So anytime you can remind them of the problems that they had before they worked with you and how what you've designed is the solution to that problem, the better, because that's going to help you feel more confident in what it is that you've delivered. So a lot of times this will come up in rebranding, for example. I will, if they have an old logo, I love to include a slide of their old logo or their old branding. Like, hey, just as a reminder, here's where you started. Here's where we're coming from. And here's why what you described, what you had wasn't working for you. And then use that, flip it and reverse it to then talk about how the new branding that you created answers those questions or solves those problems. So that's another way to, again, like psychologically remind them of why they're here and say, like, remember, you came to me because you had this and it wasn't working. And it's because this quality, this quality, this quality, this quality, and label it, right? Like actually draw it out on the slide. These are all the ways in which you described that your old branding didn't work. And then when you reveal the new branding, you can say, and these are the ways in which what I'm putting forward is solving those problems. It's also really important to tell a visual story in your design. So design presentations should feel like storytelling, not necessarily a product demo. Explaining your thought process and your why for your design decisions is going to help that client feel more confident in the product that you've produced. It shouldn't be like, well, it looks good and it's pretty and it's nice. No. We need to figure out we chose this font because it pulls from these qualities. I found inspiration from XYZ type things. Something I've included in our brand design presentations recently is like, where's my visual research rabbit holes? Where have those taken me? Based on what you've told me and where you want to go and who you are, here's how those visual elements have then informed my design process. And here's where we can pull those direct correlations and inspirations between what we talked about and now what you're getting. So that's another great way to illustrate your design thinking. And really illustrating your design thinking is what's helping sell the product, right? It's like helping sell your creativity, your output is by describing the things that you do naturally that you forget that the client doesn't know how to do. your own art history knowledge, your own design knowledge, your own process and thinking, your journey to get there. You could even show, here's all the versions I rejected. Although sometimes I notice when you do that, the client ends up like fixating on the one that you hate, and then that becomes a mess. But I think you can show them, like, map through your decision making and how that has then impacted the final result based on what they've shared with you, right? So that's the telling the visual story part. The next important thing that will help you in presenting your design ideas more clearly, and again, I'm going to really like hone in on branding here because that's what I know best, is showing the design work in context. This is where mockups and real world applications really come into play. So having good business card, packaging, social posts, signage mockups. Here's what your Instagram could look like. Here's what your business card could look like. Here's what your event pop-up could look like, is going to help sell that concept more, right? Because clients are hiring you to help them visualize the things that they don't know how to do. So the more often that you can show them, oh, you talked about eventually wanting to do a collab with this type of brand. And so this is what your packaging and your hang tag and your marketing campaign could look like should you want to go through with that idea, right? Same for like event activations, pop-ups, holiday campaigns, etc. The more you can pull from what they've expressed in the beginning of the process and then visualize it for them using maybe generative AI tools. So go back and listen to our generative AI episode, through mockups, through just ideation and brainstorming. It's going to show the client that you thought of all the ways in which you're trying to help them realize their vision. And it sets you up quite nicely for continuing work, which we'll talk about at the end. The last thing is making sure that you're really leading the conversation. So when I'm video presenting to the client, I want to make sure that I'm talking to them not only from a place of authority and confidence, but I am showing them that this is really what I think is their best option. So leading the conversation by, instead of saying, what do you think? Or I want your feedback on, or here's what we're excited about, we're going for more of like, this is what we believe will get you the best ROI. Here's what we know will get you the most, stickiness with your community. Setting the tone so it's not reactive and it's not like, we could do this or we could do that, or maybe I was thinking that if we could someday do da 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 da. Soft, too soft. You are there as the authority and you're there as the expert. And so what you want to do is position your work as the solution to their problem. But also, I think a lot of people miss the opportunity to be convincing in portraying their design work and being just like forthright in the potential that they see for the brand. So being really confident and being really ready to showcase, like, here's where you could go with this. And here's how we know that that's going to work. Here's where we know that there's an opportunity, there's runway for you here. There's an opening, there's a gap in the market. There's a way to align yourself with this other company that's going to then get you this much more exposure. Being more business minded in that way and less design minded helps to kind of close the gap on that design concept, if that makes sense. So, the other thing about leading the conversation here, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, is give at least 2 or 3 opportunities to get their input. So maybe there's something in the design process that you weren't 100% sold on yourself as the designer. I wouldn't say this about like the main of the concept, but maybe there's like that 20 to 15% margin of things that you're like, yeah, I'm not like so attached to doing it the way that I put forward. That's where you want to ask that client feedback. So sometimes I'll ask that on fonts, or hey, do these color tones feel right to you? What do you think about this as a tagline? How would you feel if we did this type of merchandise piece instead of that one? So that when they're watching the video, you're priming them to think about the answers to those questions. And again, not call the whole of the thing into question. So let's say you're designing like a brochure, for example, and you love the layout and you know the layout's going to work, but you're like, I'm take it or leave it on the stock images that I've sourced. Give them that transparency. Tell them I'm open to changing XYZ type of things, because then it will help them focus on the things that you're not married to instead of like reject the entirety of the concept. That's making sense. So you basically want to give those opportunities for feedback by leading the bulk of the conversation, but leaving a margin, like again, that 20 to 15% margin where you're okay having some negotiation over, you're okay finding a compromise on, because it will allow that project to move forward quickly and more efficiently if you can identify the things that you know that the client can have opinion on, because it's not putting up all of your creative work up for debate, right? A lot of times we'll see that if there's multiple decision makers on the project, and I'll say this even in the brand presentation, if you send this to 1,000 people, you'll get 1,000 answers because design is subjective. So a lot of times, psychologically and sociologically, like people want to feel useful and they want to feel like their opinion matters. So they want to throw in their opinion about something. It's very rare that you send it to 10 people and all 10 people are like, yep, 100%, no notes. So again, find those more micro moments where you want their feedback and you want those opportunities to get their opinion in the door. And it will save you so much work on the back end because you're the expert on the design, you're the expert on the visuals, and where you can let them have some say or some expertise. Again, taglines, layouts, maybe it's an image, a pattern, things like that, where there's that opportunity to be like, okay, I wasn't totally 100% married to this, but this is pseudo the direction I want to go in. Just know that that's going to already plant the seed of doubt. So be strategic about what things you want to ask for specific client feedback on. What this does is it sets you up really nicely for the last page of your presentation to be the recap of what you talked about plus next steps. So the first thing is I'll put a slide at the very end of the presentation that literally says next steps. I will list those 2 to 3 questions that I wanted their feedback on. How do you feel about these fonts? What do you think about that type of imagery? Hey, I took a risk on the blah, blah, blah. Let me know what you think about that tagline. So it's like the first thing I'll say is like, okay, now that you viewed the presentation, here are the things I'd most want your input on, blah, blah, blah. So please leave your notes on those things. And then here are all the ways in which I think we could help you after this. So you saw the social media mockup. Do you need help with Instagram templates? Do you have somebody for your website? Do you need someone for your merch, etc.? Kind of priming the conversation for the next time that you talk. So that last slide of the presentation should always be, here are the things that I want your feedback on immediately, and here's where I think we could go with it from here. And again, back to kind of like the sales psychology of it all, making sure that you're prepping the client at the beginning of the presentation that like what we're looking for is slam dunk. Like I would love nothing more than for this to feel like a slam dunk. For whatever reason, if it doesn't, please let us know. You'll have an opportunity to address that on the next call. So I used to say like everyone gets one round of edits included, da da da. I've kind of struck that from our messaging because my goal was always to like hit it out of the park the first go. So I will start again. You can see a gajillion examples of these on my website. Start off the call. Please watch the presentation all the way through. Walk away for 24 hours. On the second watch, I want you to leave your notes. I've asked you some specific questions throughout this presentation. Those are of the most priority. But of course, if you have any like genuine reaction that you want to share with us, please do so. And then we'll take it from there on the next call. That structure is really helpful. Again, you're setting the expectation from the jump. You're giving them a chance to have input, but you're mitigating the amount of back and forth and the edits that you'll have to do if you present your concept with confidence and use some of that sales psychology to your advantage, right? So that pretty much recaps how to get better at presenting your creative ideas. So finding your right recording tool, practice, 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 practice until you get comfortable. Start with the strategy. So figure out like how and why did I make the decisions that I did? How does that solve their problem? Tell a visual design story. So recap how somebody goes, for example, the client customer journey, or how it feels like they're really getting to see your creative brain work. Show the project in context. So if it's packaging, showing a mockups, if it's logo design, showing signage, et cetera, et cetera. And then really making sure that you're leading the conversation by giving key moments for feedback. So if you're really running it 80% of the time and you're leaving that 20 to 15% margin for them to have input, it's going to protect your creative integrity and your creative ideas for that larger 80%. And then lastly, ending with some kind of sign off that's looking for the feedback on those questions, but positioning yourself as an ongoing partner saying like, hey, here's all the ways that we could take this even further if you continue to work with us. So that should pretty much do it. Again, it's great practice to do this in micro versions. So doing some kind of brand design in 60 seconds, series on your social, or getting more succinct with your language by practicing the presentation, using AI tools, coming back to, I'll even before presenting sometimes go back to the ChatGPT channel and say, what are the 5 major themes I should focus on in presenting the branding? Sometimes I'll take a screenshot of the logo and say, what are the strongest points of this logo? And into ChatGPT, like use these tools as your friend, especially if you've got all the information about the brand in each individual channel. You can really measure your effort and measure your impact on what it is that you've designed for the benefit of the client by having that in your back pocket, having that confidence, having that, experience in portraying what it is that you've created and communicating it in a human way. And this is why I really think presenting your design work via video is the thing that will help you the most combat like the AI and the overwhelm and too much client input of them getting influenced by outside forces. If you can communicate consistently and effectively, hey, I'm here to help you. Here's the best way I know that I can help you. And I know that this is going to help you because XYZ, and here's how. That kind of human to human part of it is not to be overlooked. So, as always, if you love today's episode, don't forget to send it, save it, share it with a friend, leave a comment on YouTube, on Spotify. Let us know what you think. I'm hoping this is helpful to you. Like I said, there are oodles of examples of these types of videos on our website, mkwcreative.co. You can click on those portfolio pages and click into the actual video that I sent the client for almost every single one of them. That will be hugely helpful to kind of any beginner designer because it really will help you walk through kind of my design, not only my design process, but the design thinking, and then how that design thinking then gets communicated to the client to help get the big bucks, to get the cool projects, honestly. Like the better that you can, with conviction, communicate your design decisions, the better you'll be for landing those bigger, more awesome opportunities. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.